when you're old and you look back, you can't remember everything. You remember snippets, the important moments, the moments where something extraordinary happened, extraordinarily happy, or extraordinarily sad, or something extraordinary in between. That day on the mountainside was one of those days. I will remember it until the day that I die. It was after the miracle where Jesus had fed thousands of people on the hillside. And then he'd taken us away and had spoken to us about some things that we didn't understand. He talked about what was to come, about death. He told us not to tell anyone. He was clearly struggling against something. Then for another week, we travelled the countryside together, and Jesus taught and healed and showed us amazing things and dealt with thousands of people. He'd regularly take himself off to somewhere quiet to spend time in prayer to his Father. Sometimes he would go on his own, and sometimes he would take one or two of us with him. This was one of those times. One day, Jesus asked me, John, and James to go with him up the mountain to pray. He went a little way up, and we followed him. What I saw there was etched on my brain for all time. It made me question everything I thought I knew. Believe the impossible. Jesus was praying, and the three of us stood a little way off. Suddenly, we became aware that Jesus' appearance was changing. His face changed, and his clothes changed, becoming a bright white, like they were shining, like the sun or the moon. Then there were other men, 2 of them, who appeared from nowhere. They too dazzled and glowed in the dim light. I wasn't aware of James and John anymore. I was transfixed by what I was seeing in front of me. I approached Jesus, and I could hear that he was talking with the 2 men about more things that I didn't understand, about the future, about something that Jesus was preparing to do in Jerusalem. And then I realised the 2 men were Moses and Elijah. I know, it sounds unbelievable. It was unbelievable. These 2 great prophets had long since passed out of Israel, by hundreds of years, and yet it was them. It was like they had returned from heaven, sent by the Father to speak with Jesus for this time. Now, of course, it's clear what they were speaking about, although I didn't know at the time that Jesus would die the way that he did, and would rise again on the 3rd day, and would join his Father in the heavenly realm. I was blissfully unaware of the trauma that was coming in Jerusalem then, unaware of the journey that he already knew he had to travel. But that day, I learned that there are truths that are outside of this time. Truth that looks down from heaven and is always true, whether I see it or not. I learnt that I was part of a picture that was so much greater than I could comprehend, so much more complete than I could ever imagine. A story of God and his people which was being written from the very beginning of time and continued as I watched Jesus, Elijah, and Moses talking together. The enormity of what I was witnessing was shocking. its truth embedded in my heart. And I hope that I have lived my life in a way worthy of that knowledge. I had been tired from the climb. We were some distance from the town where we'd left the others, but my tiredness left me in that moment. It was important. I could not serve in a way that was satisfactory, even that came close to what I was witnessing. Moses and Elijah made to leave us, so I said to Jesus, "This is so good. Teacher, I will make dwellings here, one for each of you. For you, Moses and Elijah." I didn't want this to end. And then there was darkness. A cloud fell from nowhere and surrounded us. It was thick and dark, and we were terrified up there on the mountain. We dare not move for fear of falling or losing our way or each other. Then it came. The voice that spoke to Moses in the cloud. The voice in the stillness that Elijah had heard all those years ago from his desert cave. The voice of the Almighty Elohim. And it was great and terrible and wonderful. I will remember those words as long as I walk the earth. He said, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And then it was still. The cloud lifted, and Jesus was there on the mountainside all alone. James, John, and I were silent. We didn't even tell the others. Who would have believed us? And yet, all these years later, it is a treasure in my heart and a reality that lives behind my failing eyes. I will not be here forever, so I entrust this truth to you. God speaks across all time and all space. Jesus is his son, his chosen. Listen to him.